What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are approaching the end of the HBCU football season. It's a lot going on, but we got a couple games left. Thanksgiving just passed. I got Arielle Kilgore in the building. Arielle, how you doing today?
It just seems like, honestly, we just started. It doesn't even feel like we're even at the end. It just seemed like this season sweep by. But I mean, according to you, this wasn't the greatest season, and I do agree with you on that. You know, some of these games we're not going to miss. Other games I really am going to miss. Just to the MEAC just really surprised me this season, and all the up and downs. We finally know who's going to represent us in this Celebration Bowl, which I'm excited. But congratulations to them.
Listen, we always knew. Okay. We
Did
always knew.
we?
Oh, we knew. Oh.
I didn't know. Randall, see in the future, you guys. That's so Randall. Bump Raven.
Oh my God.
So Randall. I didn't see this coming. I thought, Trey Oliver was really gonna, actually I'm not upset. They whooped us all this year and they were whipping on opponents all this year. I mean, respectfully, they deserve to go, but it's I'm not as mad that they're not the ones that are going to be here in Atlanta on next week.
Listen, I knew, and we're going to talk about Chennis Berry right now because listen, Chennis Berry, South Carolina State, he was running the game at Benedict. Now he's running the game in the MEAC at South Carolina State. Succeeded head coach Buddy Pugh. We all knew, because you knew this, Arielle. We knew he was going to replace Buddy Pugh. We talked about it last year when Buddy Pugh retired. We knew that I was going to be the next coach of South Carolina State. But he became the coach, and he sort of brought that same level of defensive intensity, commitment to the run game, offensive, defensive line doing their thing, and he ran the gambit in the MEAC, and he's going to be going back to Atlanta because he was in Atlanta last year for the SWAC Championship, and now he's going to be in Atlanta as the MEAC champion in the Celebration Bowl. So, Arielle, listen, you've covered South Carolina State all year. That's been your game of the week countless times, and I've been jealous of you because that's been way better football to watch. So I got to get your thoughts, Arielle. So, what are your thoughts on Chennis Berry's success and just the massive victories in the MEAC and the fact that they're the MEAC champions and they're going to be in the Celebration Bowl this year?
I mean, like I was just explaining to you, my pick, for everybody that doesn't know, my pick was actually going to be North Carolina Central. I think they have been proving themselves all season, especially when it comes to you're losing your main quarterback in Davius Richard. You don't have those big boys on top anymore. You are working with kind of some rookies or people that have just come up from second string or third string who are finally getting off the bench and working around. I think Walker Harris did an amazing job. But when you just think about what Chennis Berry has done here, came in throughout all the rumors, and we talk about he's never going to win against these white teams. He's not going to have any wins in the conference. It's his first year. How far can he really go? And you're seeing South Carolina State ending their season 9-2 overall, but undefeated in conference play. Just in his first year, and like how you were describing, we really didn't think all of the mistakes that South Carolina State had for these past 2 years, Chennis Berry could come in and just fix. As you said, we did have Buddy Pugh, excellent coach, going down in HBCU history, changed lives, changed the way that we played on the field, changed the game, outdid some of the opponents, even hitting some of their rivals in Howard and North Carolina Central. But when you look at Chennis Berry developing that backfield and Kazarius Adams, just one of their super weapons that they had this year, getting Eric Phoenix to come and be one of the most extreme and amazing quarterbacks that we have seen come across South Carolina State, developing a whole defense led by Johnson. It's literally been incredible to watch them defy records and defy goals. And now they're on their way as a first-year coach into the Celebration Bowl, which I don't think anybody has done and went to the Celebration Bowl in MEAC history in their first year as being a coach. So now he's back in Atlanta, about to defend the title, whoever wins this SWAC championship. And I would have to say, depending on who they play, if South Carolina ends up beating Jackson State, which to me would be not South Carolina, if Southern ends up beating Jackson State, and they end up going to the Celebration Bowl, to me, I think that's just That's a run through Celebration Bowl. Chennis Berry really just has no competition to me. But we're thinking about if we really want a good game and Jackson State does what needs to be done and he come plays Chennis Berry, the thing that Chennis Berry does have on Jackson State is a better run game. They have more weapons. To me, they have a more controlled quarterback. Eric Phoenix has on this total season been passing over 60% accuracy. You can't, that's as best as it's going to get, especially if you're making really long passes. He loves to shoot down the field, but he also is a runner. You get that from Jackson State as well, but I just feel like Eric Phoenix is a little bit more polished than that. Then you have a really good defense, and at times, Jackson State's defense has been iffy. We're looking at a team that really hasn't found their control during the season. They'll have a good game, and then they have a bad game. South Carolina State, what Chennis Berry has done has been discipline, it's been consistency, it's been we're going out here, we're going to win games. This is their second winning streak that they've had. They won their last 3 games in dominant fashion over Howard, Morgan State, and Norfolk State. So we're looking at a team that is prepared, who has essentially flipped roles with Central and is now saying that I'm going to run the MEAC. And if I had to guess, if I had to make a prediction, I would say if they want to go ahead and do a 3-peat with two more Celebration Bowls, that's fine. Because the culture that Chennis Berry has built within the South Carolina State school is not going anywhere. To have a run like this, even if they don't win, the recruitment is about to go up. They might want to pay Chennis Berry more. And then you might see a lot of transfers happening. You see that how he's developing his running backs, how his defense looks. People want to play for winning teams. And for like how I believe defense wins games, you need somebody like that. Chennis Berry has had an amazing season, and congratulations, South Carolina State. I really don't see anybody pushing them through. The only thing that could make this better if they would have won their first 2 games, but I mean, ending the season on 9-2, I can't say that's bad. None of their losses came from any in-conference play. So it's, to me, a win's a win here. Either way you look at it, Chennis Berry is winning. 2024 is his year, and congratulations to that team again. They've played amazing. Probably the best games that we watched all year.
Exactly. And I'm just going to add to what you just said, because I feel like I'm the Chennis Berry historian at this point, because like just seeing what he did at Benedict, him being an SIC graduate, going to Savannah State, being an offensive lineman that was doing his thing at Savannah State in the 1990s. He comes to Benedict. They go 5-5 their first year. But from 2022 to 2024, in 2 conferences, he has not lost a conference game. He swept through the SIC in 2022 to win the first SIC championship. Then somehow, some way, that team got better. They swept through the SIC again, and then he won another SIC championship. Then he goes to the MEAC, sweeps through the MEAC, and now he's going to the Celebration Bowl. I think that has to really be stated and really be talked about the way that we're talking about it, because that says to me that he always was going to be this great. He knew how to do his job, and folks got to stop sleeping on these Division II coaches. Like I wrote an article on Clutch Points last week where I talked about how Chennis Berry's success should dispel this notion that, oh, you can't bring in Division II coaches. Have they won yet? Have they won in the playoffs? Oh my gosh, we can't bring him in, because what happens if he makes it to the FCS playoffs? He's going to lose these white schools. That whole entire conversation, which I'm not going to say that it was totally invalid. I disagreed. I'm not going to say it was totally invalid, but you have to look at the makeup of what Chennis Berry is. Chennis Berry is a former offensive lineman. So you know the offensive line is going to be straight. And you know from what you saw at Benedict that the defensive line is going to be straight. Then on top of that, and Chennis Berry talked about it. It's not just me saying this. Chennis Berry said, I heard what everybody was saying, that, oh, we got these D2 players, this D2 coach. Those D2 players, Eric Phoenix was arguably the best quarterback in HBCU football this year. But what I heard, Arielle, is, oh, these Division II players, like, oh, only the skilled players are good, but the quarterbacks, I want to see them against tougher competition. They just be playing Fort Valley and Albany and Tuskegee. Why don't they play Ferris State and Grand Valley? Well, how about he plays North Carolina Central, trucks a guy, and then even Pat McAfee says, yo, this guy's dope. What about that? What about all the amazing things that Caden High did all year? What about DeAndre Duhart? What about the fact that he recruited Casey Adams, and Casey Adams was doing his thing? What about the fact that he beat the Citadel and Tennessee Tech? And low-key, if you want to talk about it, that win over Tennessee Tech that South Carolina State did helped Eddie Jordan, Tennessee State, get into the FCS playoffs. Let's talk about that, because a lot of folks were playing with Chennis Berry, and he heard it. Listen, he be praying, he be saying praise the Lord, but he has ears. Oh, he has ears. He heard all the talk of all these folks, Arielle. It wasn't us, because we knew. We knew from the jump that he was going to be at South Carolina State. We knew from the jump that he was going to be successful, and we saw it. And then the crazy part about it is, I don't know how I did this. Maybe God was speaking to me, but I picked them to beat North Carolina Central. And oh my gosh, I was like, I'm going to be right in my picks, because you know what? Chennis Berry ain't gonna let me down, because there's a philosophy in him and that coaching staff that we knew was gonna work. And people always talk about, oh, the FCS playoffs, oh, the Division II is so weak. They didn't play anybody in the CIAA. In that first playoff matchup, you heard me say this before, Arielle, in that first playoff matchup against Wingate had one of the best defenses in Division II. And they really had identical stats in that game, Wingate and Benedict. But the only thing that Wingate was able to do that stifled Benedict was stop the run game. Only 38 rushing yards for Benedict that game, which is really something you wouldn't expect from a Chennis Berry team. And then you look at Lenore Ryan. And you look at how they were coached by Mike Jacobs, who's now the coach at Mercer, doing his thing at Mercer. If we want to talk about these D2 coaches going to the FCS, he has them in the playoffs at this point, and they were going back and forth, tit for tat, and Chennis Berry and Benedict were succeeding in that game. And then people were like, oh, well, they just gave up. Chennis Berry got our coach. I didn't see Chennis Berry get our coach, in my opinion. I saw a team that just gave out of gas, and Lenore Ryan just found a way to win. But guess what? Lenore Ryan blew out Valdosta State. Lenore Ryan blew out all the teams, the two teams that they faced until they got beat by Harding in the Division II playoffs going into the championship. So for me, people try to invalidate Chennis Berry's success. You can't invalidate this. Because we can't say, well, he took over Buddy Pugh's team. He had all Buddy Pugh's players. Or Buddy Pugh just developed these guys. Chennis Berry took it over. No, you can't say that. Because it's the transfer portal era. And people want to be like, oh, these transfer portal, these kids just be leaving. There's no team loyalty anymore. Guess what? Without team loyalty, with players hopping in the transfer portal, like Sam Howell, for example, that Arielle, we went crazy over when he rushed for over 200 yards against Howard University. We were trying to figure out what happened. Sam Howell left. He was at South Carolina. So you had a lot of players from that Buddy Pugh team that left. There were some guys that stayed, but you had a lot of players from that Buddy Pugh team, a lot of key players that graduated and that left. And he brought in a lot of his Benedict guys, and he got other recruits. And guess what? He won. Chennis Berry is going to be an HBCU coaching legend. We are going to be mentioning him with Eddie Robinson. If I am wrong, I'm wrong. I stand on it. But we're going to be mentioning him alongside Eddie Robinson, Pete Richardson, like Jake Gaither. We're going to be mentioning him amongst the greatest HBCU coaches in history if he decides to stay at the HBCU level. Because here's the thing now we got to look at, because if Chennis Berry keeps winning in the MEAC, and especially if he wins some out-of-conference games, he beats some Sun Belt teams, some FBS teams like how A&T used to do back in the day, don't you think that some of these schools going to come calling? Especially these Group of 5 teams? Like FIU's open right now. They talking about Willie Simmons. You got FAU's open right now. So it's going to be other jobs that's open. Jerry Mack, who was at North Carolina Central, is at Kennesaw. So I'm just saying. Like I hope that Chennis Berry continues to stay in HBCU football. He becomes that new Buddy Pugh at South Carolina State. But we're looking at a special coaching talent. It's not just him; it's the players he recruited and it's his coaching staff. But the Chennis Berry experience. Listen, I know about it, Arielle. I know about it because Fort Valley got beat down on ESPN. And we got beat down on homecoming on ESPN. So I know about the Chennis Berry experience. So Arielle, I'm very excited for Chennis Berry. I'm very excited for South Carolina State. And listen, we're not talking about the Celebration Bowl on this show. But listen, I'm excited for Atlanta too. Not gonna lie to you.
I mean, you just think about the turnover rate in head coaches that have been happening at HBCU. As you just said, Jerry Mack going to Kennesaw State, Lee Hall out for Delaware State. There are a lot of coaches that don't get to stay where they are, nor new head coaches that have come in their first 2 seasons that haven't even had a turnaround. So to come into South Carolina State from back-to-back championships, from having really good players. When you're looking for coaches like that, that's what you want. You want coaches that bring in players that you know are going to be really good. We want coaches to bring in players that are going to be a great quarterback, that can set up the run, that have great RPO options, have great sense of the field. Bring in a backfield like that, bring in a defense like that. The only thing that I do wish, and I know that I've caught myself doing it or whatever, I don't wish for the dullness of his success. If his success is out of HBCUs, then I want him to go. I think that his time is not up. Not saying just because he did his years in the SWAC or also doing his years in the MEAC. I think that if he has more to give, he has more to give. But you're looking at these other teams. Maybe he wants to go into the Big South. Maybe he wants to go to the CAA. Maybe he wants to get out of that and try a conference that's just not in HBCUs. Maybe he wants to go try to the SAC, the ACC. Maybe he wants to try other colleges. But the success that he is having within the MEAC, I would say go for it. I would say push for it. I would say keep giving Trey Oliver the mess that you had gave him this year. Keep destroying hopes and dreams for other teams, because this is something that he is good at. But I necessarily, and although it's contrary to belief and not something that HBCUs have a good point on, because there is a really bad turnover rate. I think it's over a 60% turnover rate within the first 2 years of HBCU coaches, which is kind of terrible depending on what you're doing. But I wouldn't say it's all the coaches' fault. You know, most state-funded colleges or private colleges, especially HBCUs, have a hard time trying to keep staff when it comes to payroll and all that good stuff. But that's neither here nor there. Chennis Berry stays. South Carolina State is running the MEAC for the next 3 to 4 years. If he does decide to leave within 2 years, I think he has done everything that he needed to do. And I should want to see him in a space where he could be recognized and internalized forever. And I'm saying he can't do that in HBCU sports, but this man here is literally touched by God. Literally, God just said here. This man has more than what South Carolina State could give him. But like you said, congratulations, option for him. But I wouldn't see him staying for a long time. But I love what he's doing.
Yeah, that's fair. Like for me, I've become more liberal in my thoughts about coaches leaving, because if you know from when we started doing the show, I'm like, no, stay. But like now I understand. I get it. Like I've grown within my thought process. If Chennis Berry's success leads him to go FBS, I would prefer that he go FBS as a head coach. And I'm not disparaging Willie Simmons for becoming a running back coach. I'm not disparaging that at all. If he became offensive line coach for like South Carolina, I mean, you making money, I ain't mad at you. But like, I'm just saying, like, I want him with his level of success to not have to ride the pine. You know what I mean? Because I feel like with a lot of HBCU coaches, even in their success, they have to then go and be an assistant coach or a positions coach. And it's like, why do you have Willie Simmons coaching running backs? Now, he's making money, and the Duke running backs were really good this year, okay? But like, why does Willie Simmons have to go coach running backs? Why can't his HBCU success be good enough for him to go leave a middling, at least group of 5 program? Because we typically know that at that group of 5 program, they'll go up and they'll go to another one of the Power 5, Power 4 schools. So I feel that. I'm rocking with Chennis Berry wherever he go, because I tell you what, Arielle, because if he says, you know what, South Carolina State, listen, it's been real, okay? 2 Celebration Bowls, we made the FCS playoffs, I won a game, I'm out here. Guess what, Arielle? He got a Savannah State University degree, okay? So he's gonna always be an HBCU guy. And no matter what, if he's successful, if he win a national championship, I'm gonna be like, HBCU alumnus who wins the national championship.
You're so shady. So shady to all the people that decide to leave halfway through their HBCU. You know, I'm not disagreeing with you though. He is a true blue blood HBCU graduate. But I don't disagree. It's a little shady for all them people that slick type be leaving, but want to claim the HBCU for 2 years. But it's cool. It's fine.
Hey, I just want to say before we move on, I just want to say that every time I look at Chennis Berry's success as a Fort Valley State alum, I'm a little bit upset, because I'm not saying we could have like secured his services in 2020, but we did relieve Coach Porter of his duties in 2019. And Chennis Berry was a free agent, and we signed Maurice Flowers, who, in hindsight, Maurice Flowers is an amazing coach. He got us Shamar British, he got us Kevin Durham, he got us Emmanuel Wilson, who's in the NFL right now. He's the one that brought those guys in, and I wish he would have stayed longer, but he left, and he went to Johnson C. Smith, and they had a phenomenal season this year. But a part of me wonders, what if Fort Valley had got Chennis Berry in Wildcat Stadium with Chick-fil-A not that far away? Okay, I just wonder at this point. But it's
I love how you went into your Jerry Jones owner head. We relieved somebody. He was a free agent, but we decided not to pick him out. We went with the other option. I'm like, whose team manager is this? Who has Randall been talking to? Because man is out here trying to draft coaches. It's okay. We'll do a draft coach episode very soon because there are going to be a lot of new coaches next year.
True, but hey, but listen, I gotta say this. You gotta understand, I'm in my GM era because the Hawks, they go into the NBA Cup, but the Lakers are struggling. Okay, so someone needs to be a general manager. We got to move some pieces, okay? Because I'm a Hawks and Lakers fan. I also root for the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies. So yeah. Anyway, okay. Anyway, I do. Like, you gotta have multiple teams. All right, but before we move on to the SWAC Championship, I have to really give flowers and talk about the success of Eddie George this year. Yeah. Because to me, I feel as if Eddie George and Chennis Berry are two of the biggest stories in HBCU football when it comes to coaching. Not to say that they're the only two great coaches, because I think Trey Oliver still did an amazing job. I think that TC Taylor did an amazing job. And I'm the one, if you remember, Arielle, like we actually were both the ones that said that when Deion left, that TC Taylor should have been the guy. Don't try to go after another celebrity. That's actually on YouTube. Like we talked about that. So I'm not saying that they were the only great coaches in the space, but I just think that the story of Chennis Berry and of Eddie George, I think really says a lot about the open nature of HBCU football and the opportunity that you can get in HBCU football, because you have an Eddie George that didn't want to be a head coach. Like Eddie George, Heisman winner, Ohio State graduate. He was the man with the Houston Oilers, then Tennessee Titans, and doing his thing, possibly future Hall of Famer. And Mickey Allen, who is the athletic director of Tennessee State, reached out to him and said, hey, like, do you want to, become a head coach? He was hesitant. He turned him down at first. But ultimately he said, yes, I'm going to take on the challenge. And it took him a minute, because sometimes when you're trying to build a winning program, especially a former blue blood that has seen this bit of struggles ever since 2013, the last time they made the FCS playoffs, it takes time. It's not always a Deion Sanders situation. So he gets in there. There's not a lot of fanfare. There's not a lot of folks talking, oh, we got this former NFL player here. There was news stories, but it wasn't like Deion. It wasn't like what the hype around Ed Reed would be if he went to Bethune. And we know the reason why. We can talk about it, because the reason why that didn't happen is because Tennessee State is in a non-black conference. Let's be for real. Because if Eddie George was at FAMU, how many articles would have been written about him? How many docu-series would have been filmed on him? But Tennessee State, which is a known HBCU, which has a lot of amazing alumni, including in athletics, Ed Too Tall Jones, the top pick in the NFL draft. You have NFL greats that played at Tennessee State, but they're not in an HBCU conference. They're not in the SWAC. They're not in the MEAC. They're not in the SIC or the CIAA. So a lot of attention wasn't paid to Eddie George, because a lot of folks would get up when they play Howard, but when they play Southeastern Missouri or they play Tennessee Tech, a lot of people weren't paying attention. But if they paid attention, they would see that Eddie George was building a winner. I had some questions about the offense at first, because I saw an offense that predicated itself to the run, but I also saw an offense that, to me, evolved, and you saw Draylon Ellis show that he is a capable, balanced player, that's a dual threat player that can run, but also can air it out, and he showed that against Montana. You have an Eddie George that instilled a winning culture and tradition back into Tennessee State, because they always had it. And he won all his HBCU games. He beat the teams he needed to beat in the OVC Big South. He beat Southeastern Missouri, which is almost the big bad boogeyman that was inevitably going to make the FCS playoffs. And they made it, and yeah, he had Tennessee State that made the FCS playoffs, and they won the Big South OVC Championship, at least a share of it. So Eddie George, his legacy is secure. So we talk about the future of coaches. We just talked about it with Chennis Berry, saying if Chennis Berry remains successful, that, hey, he may want to go and coach at the FBS level. Eddie George actually says that, God willing, he's going to stay at Tennessee State another 5 to 6 years. That's what he said in the Tennessean. So I was wondering, like, Eddie George, like, he keeps being successful. Who's to say that one of these Group of 5 or Power 5 institutions don't come calling? But if Eddie George is really committed to the grind of building up Tennessee State, I'm all in for it. I'm happy for him. And I think that is a blight on I'm not just talking about HBCU media, not at all, because I think that we've elevated Eddie George and told the story of Tennessee State. I'm more so talking about media in general as an indictment that just because someone is not as boisterous as Deion Sanders doesn't mean that they're not doing good things as well. I just think that it's asinine, because I didn't see a lot about Eddie George and Tennessee State playing North Dakota State. But you know who they played the week before? Colorado. It was a lot of conversations about both Colorado and North Dakota State. But you have Eddie George as a former Heisman winner that's leading HBCU, which is an amazing story in Tennessee, the state that he built his career in, his professional career, and it wasn't a lot of chatter about it. So I think that Eddie George quietly is building an FCS power. I think Draylon Ellis is going to graduate. He's going to move on. He has some guys that hit the transfer portal, but you look at Terrell Allen and Monroe Beard from last year. He coached a Buck Buchanan Award winner. Then he has a Buck Buchanan Award finalist that was in his secondary this year. Eddie George, I mean, we have to really pay attention to what Eddie George has going on, especially if he indeed does stay at Tennessee State for the next 5 to 6 years. Now, here's the thing for me, Arielle, because listen, I've been around this sports space a little bit. Okay, I work at Clutch Points, so I don't just write HBCU sports, although I do write it predominantly. That's what I get paid for. But I also write NBA, NFL. And I remember before I got with Clutch Points, I'm a basketball fan. Kyrie Irving stood in the middle of TD Bank North Garden in Boston. And he said, if you have me, I love to re-sign with the Boston Celtics. And all the Celtics, they stood up, they clapped like it was a movie. Kyrie Irving was in Brooklyn a year later. So, Eddie George, please, and don't do that to us, Eddie George. Don't do that to us. Because you don't got to lie. Just say, listen, do the Deion. I'll entertain it, okay? Do the Deion if you're going to leave. But don't lie to it, because we want to see you build Tennessee State back up to what we know it has, because Tennessee State is not a moribund program. They've had some hardships in recent years, but they're not a moribund program in this millennium. In this past decade, they're not moribund, because in 2013, they made the FCS playoffs. So all I'm saying is, Eddie George, don't lie to us. Don't lie to us. But I'm excited for what Eddie George is doing at Tennessee State. I'm excited to see what his recruiting class looks like. And I want to say this last thing, too. I love the fact that I can tell he wants to win, because the fact that he tried to get Tyler Roll, who was the offensive coordinator at North Dakota State, when he did that, that said a lot to me. It really did, because it said to me, I'm trying to win right now. Even if I was like, is Eddie George going to leave? When he went for that in the spring, even though Tyler Roll didn't stay because he left and went to Iowa State, I was like, he's trying to win. And he's not just trying to win his HBCU games. He's not just trying to be HBCU good, although I don't think that being HBCU good is necessarily an indictment on a coach's success or a team success. But when he did, and I'm like, you're trying to beat North Dakota State when you go to the Fargo Dome in September. You're trying to make a run for the OVC Big South Championship. And if you're bringing in that guy that knows that North Dakota State system, you're trying to win a national championship or at least advance far into the FCS playoffs. So Eddie George is doing something incredibly interesting. And I just really want people to pay attention. But if y'all don't pay attention, it's fine. I'll keep writing about it. Okay. We'll keep doing content on it. You don't got to worry about it. Okay. I'll be the Eddie George historian too. Okay. And we'll be the Eddie George podcast pretty soon. Okay, but listen, Eddie George, real talk, amazing season. We gotta show love. Shout out to Tennessee State. I know Tennessee State is going through a lot on the institutional side. They have a lot going on with the state and all these different things like that. And we talk about that on the show all the time. But just the football side, Eddie George has brought hope to Tennessee State. And that's something that can't be understated. He's brought hope to HBCU football and to that story. And I think that a lot of people look at Deion Sanders as the precedent, and they should. I'm not lying saying that they shouldn't, or lying saying that, hey, Deion wasn't impressive. They should. But I think you have to look at Eddie George as more of a precedent for future NFL players, because it took him 4 years, really 2 years, but it took him 4 years to get that OVC Big South title, to bring the guys he wanted in, to instill the culture. He brought some media attention, but not a lot. He's not as boisterous as Deion. He's aligned with the mission of building up Tennessee State. And he was dope when he was playing football. And now he's bringing that same level of energy to his players at Tennessee State. If Ed Reed or Ray Lewis or some of these other folks, I know you call in prime because you wanted that prime success and that prime money, but everybody's not going to be Deion, because Deion's comparable is Michael Jordan. That's just comparable. Okay? You're not Deion, but you could be Eddie George, and it's not an insult. So I just think that Eddie George should be the precedent for a lot of these coaches in the future that are former NFL players and NFL stars. But shout out to Eddie George and Tennessee State. But let's talk about the SWAC Championship, Arielle. You're going to talk about, I can't wait to hear you talk about the SWAC Championship, because you get to suffer like me. Okay, so
I mean, you're not wrong. We are suffering because these two teams that we have, that we've been talking about, is no surprise. Southern and Jackson State. I'm actually, the only surprise that comes to me is these two teams are going head to head. All the teams that we personally thought would be good, especially Grambling. I know Grambling was on our hearts and minds. They're still in our hearts and minds that they will do better next season after giving Bethune-Cookman their first win of the season. But, that is neither here nor there. But I am suffering with you because I feel like we both know how this game is going to go. Like I said previously, if Jackson State does decide to do what Jackson State does, to me, they've just been super inconsistent. And I don't think that is necessarily a coach problem. I think it's a player problem. Just because Deion Sanders has been gone for 2 years now, but you still have some of the players that probably have watched him or that came in as he was leaving. So they have a winning mindset. We all know that the people that come through Jackson State are highly skilled. They're highly watched. They're highly praised. And I think some of that, when you get that into your mental, you get that to your mind, you develop a lot of pride, and pride leads to messy mistakes. And we saw that all through Jackson State season. Flags of offside, flags of holding, just so many penalties that Jackson State players have racked up this season, to me, describes their inconsistencies and their disability to go and win games that were winnable, or have close games that should have never been close. Yes, Jackson State is a really great football program. They're a really great team, and TC Taylor has been doing everything that he needed to do to make sure that Jackson State is getting to the point where they are today. But they could have made this path way easier and more competition than what we saw. So that's the only thing that kind of scares me with this matchup, is because Jackson State is really inconsistent, and they don't make little mistakes one at a time. They make little mistakes back to back to back, which would lead to either overtime games or really close games. And Southern's not even in the same category as Jackson State. Even though they're 8-4, to me, they don't have the best defense. their quarterback is straight, but you look at the teams that they're winning against. Grambling, the Grambling game kind of showed that, okay, maybe Southern had some life. You look at the Alabama A&M game, I say could be something to look at, but most of their games have been really decisive. Either Southern is good or they're not. So to me, not the best matchup that we can get. Like I said, a very surprising matchup, but the outcome shouldn't be surprising unless Jackson State fails to do their job. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like this season just hasn't been, like, the matchups haven't been great. And now that the MEAC, they don't have any games this week, it's like I'm stuck with you and watching a game that supposedly should be a blowout. Or maybe they'll disappoint me and they do one more surprise of the season.
Yeah, oh no, you're gonna suffer with me because Jackson State winning this by a lot. No, like because and I always hesitate to give bold predictions, and I think you know this about me because I don't want to be wrong. So I'm sort of perfectionist. I'm afraid of being wrong. So I don't like giving bold declarations and bold predictions that's normally befitting of like folks that talk about sports. But no, Jackson State should win this game by like 4 touchdowns. To be honest, like it was 33-15 when they played earlier this season. I know that was earlier this season, but it should be around that amount. Around that amount, maybe 40-21 this time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm like, why not? Like, come on. Like, Jackson State's going to the Celebration Bowl. It's going to be a rematch of 2021. Let's really be for real. Like, come on. Like, Southern, I'm happy for Southern 7-2 since they lost to Jackson State and they got beat down by Nichols. That was crazy. But like, they are a capable running team. And I think that Terrence Gray, which I never necessarily doubted him as a coach, I don't think. If I did, I did. But like, I don't think I doubted him as a coach. I just more so doubted the offensive scheme that they were running because I know for me, I just think that you have to have a balanced attack. You just got to throw the ball around the field. But to me, I'm just not satisfied. I'm like watching that Bayou Classic, Gramblin's struggling. They are struggling. Like offensive play calling, defense has been all right, but offensive play calling for Grambling this year, they've struggled. And y'all couldn't beat them demonstrably. It was 24-14. Like to be Southern's band beat Grambling like better than the football team Southern beat Grambling on the football field. They brought out Boosie.
Southern's band is, I mean, it's the Sonic Boom of the South, bro. You can't beat. Well, let me tread carefully because A&T, the blue and gold machine, they'll come in for me. But they do have a great band. That should go uncontested. I mean, if the team isn't winning, the band is definitely winning.
But the team is winning. That's my thing because I should be anticipating Boosie coming out and performing his greatest HBCU hits because the game's over. No, the game was very much so not over. Okay. Like the game was not over. I'm trying to watch Ohio State and Michigan, and they out there fighting. I'm trying to watch the game. I can't even watch the fight because I'm watching the Bayou Classic and I'm working. Okay, so like I'm like this game's supposed to be over. Okay, it's supposed to be over. It's other games to watch, and Bayou Classic I got to keep watching. Like Southern, they are a capable run team, and I think that they're a physical defense, but there's no reason at all why Jackson State should lose. Jackson, I'm not even saying this with hyperbole. Yes, it's some hyperbole, but like I'm not saying this sarcastically is what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm not trying to play mind games. Jackson State should win this game. Period. Point blank. Period. Because Jackson State, if you beaten FAMU, if you beaten Alabama State, and even that defense put a number on Jackson State, you beaten Alabama State and you have made it this far. You beat Alabama A&M. You swept through the SWAC East. And your only loss was uncharacteristically to Grambling that showed that they really weren't all that great outside of Mouse Crawley and a couple pieces of the offense. And of course, the defense was great. Like you shouldn't have lost to Grambling. You should really be undefeated in the SWAC in general, but you won the games that count as conference games because we know that Grambling game did not count as a conference game. So you're undefeated in the SWAC per the record. There's no reason why they should lose to Southern. No reason at all. Like this is their SWAC championship to win as a validation that we didn't, Deion brought us up, but we didn't need Deion to stay because we got TC Taylor, who is a Jack State alum that's here to lead us back to prominence. There's no reason why. If Southern wins, boy, December 14th is going to be a lot. Boy, my God. It's gonna be fun. Listen. The halftime show is gonna be fun. Okay, the nation is gonna get a chance to see the human jukebox. And maybe they'll bring out Boosie. I don't know. Again, maybe they'll bring out Erykah Badu. Erykah Badu went to Grambling. I don't know.
Erica is going to come in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left. Shorty is going to. You don't want Eric. She's going to be late. She's going to be super late. She's going to miss halftime, her slot to perform. She's going to come out there during 2 minutes when South Carolina State is blowing out whoever is making it to the Celebration Bowl, and they're going to be performing. That's what they're going to do. If you want, first of all, I don't know what's up with Atlanta performers, but they're never on time for anything. So, getting somebody to perform on time during the halftime show, don't get anybody from Atlanta. That's the thing. Erica can't come. Erica cannot.
But that's what we should be like. If Southern wins, we just got to think about who's coming out for the human jukebox's halftime, because the game. South Carolina State. If Southern makes it, South Carolina State is run like you gonna see Benedict Chennis Berry. You gonna see what we saw in the SIAC game over first quarter. Like, because that's what Fort Valley saw. Okay, and we had NFL players on our team. We had Emmanuel Wilson. Emmanuel Wilson is getting snaps for the Packers, but he couldn't get off on Benedict because that defensive line was too crazy. And he was trying, he was doing his best, but he couldn't. That was probably his worst game at Fort Valley. Like, that was probably his worst game, because that Chennis Berry coach defense, along with his defense coordinator, is like that. And they're at South Carolina State. There's not much that changed except the conference and the resources. That's all that changed. And the scholarships. That's all that changed. So if Southern makes it to we're not picking the Celebration Bowl this week, but I'm basically picking it. If Southern makes it to the Celebration Bowl, you're going to see Benedict. You're going to see South Carolina for real. If Jackson State makes it, that's a different conversation, because Jackson State should make it. Jackson State should absolutely make it. And we should be celebrating them, saying they made it back to the Celebration Bowl only 2 years after Deion Sanders left. So that's what we should be talking about. Like, this game, if it's a good game, that's good, because it's going to be on ESPN2. Okay, we want people to enjoy HBCU football and all the accruements of good football. Okay, well, no, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Like, Jackson State should win by a lot. Let's be for real.
Our famous last words. Because every time we say something, we had two weeks back to back, actually 3 weeks back to back of just upsets and weird outcomes that have destroyed my picks. And Jackson State, if you don't win, I promise this year wasn't real. If they don't win, this year doesn't count. We're gonna try again next year.
Listen, like Arielle, because like we'll put in the gospel sometimes. Like, one of my favorite songs ever is James Fortune, "I Forgive Me." Okay, I listen to that all the time. Mm-hmm. And he said, God's protected you from things like you didn't even know about. All right, he said it in the song. Guess I think that our broadcast messed up, because we were about to say, can we agree that FAMU's gonna beat Mississippi Valley? We're gonna say, yeah, of course. We would have both been very wrong.
We would have been, would have been. I don't even, and I think we missed that week. That was the week.
Did.
That was the week that I was super, super sick, and I'm like, you're a kid. You had woke me up, and when you texted me, I said, I know not. I know this man is lying. This man is lying to me. I had to go read it in hard print, not just online. I had to go find me a newspaper.
A newspaper?
This can't be real. And it was real. I said, what is going on? I said, this is how you know it's the end of times. Mississippi Valley State getting one over on FAMU.
But here's the thing that made it worse. Okay, if they were in Mississippi, that's one thing. I'm like, okay, because I know a lot of people had questions about Musa last year when they played Valley, like last year, and they were in Mississippi. But not only did they win at home, they broke the home win streak. Like, that started in 2018. It was a 6-year home winning streak. And you had Mississippi Valley that hadn't won since, I think, 2023. Like, and they beat FAMU, who we thought was going to make the Celebration Bowl, but we knew From that Norfolk State game on, from that South Carolina State game on, we knew that something wasn't right. The Jackson State game, that's not really an indictment against them. But the Alabama State game, we did see a couple things on that defense that, like with the defense they were going up against, I was like, I don't know. But they lost to Mississippi Valley. So our picks actually might have been safe from that. Okay. Just to be honest. You know what I'm saying? But we basically already picked out, but we want to give the official picks. Okay. So
Yeah.
I am at 120 games because we missed some weeks.
Yeah.
I am 97-33. Okay. You're 93-37. Very narrow. Okay. Even though it's 2 games, very narrow. All right. Like, so let's pick the SWAC championship officially. And I already picked Jackson State by a lot. What do you pick?
I picked Jackson State. Hopefully by 2 touchdowns. They scare me. The SWAC scares me in general. The SWAC this year has made some very, very undeniable hard mistakes that I'm just like, I can't trust them. I have trust issues with the SWAC. So Jackson State by like 2 touchdowns.
All right.
At least.
If Jackson State loses, I honestly don't know. I really don't know at this point. I'm telling you, this is a weird football season, not just in HBCU football, all around football, especially at the college level, even the NFL. It's just been a weird year. And if Jackson State loses to Southern, and here's the thing, what I would say too, real quick before we go, it is a rivalry. I will give Southern that. And it's hard to beat a team twice in a row in the same season. It's hard to do that. So, because and a lot of people sleep on that on that rivalry between Southern and Jackson, but it's really more heated in HBCU spaces than Grambling and Southern, because they say, I've spoken to people, I've interviewed like Gramblingites and Southernites. They've said like, yeah, that's like a family rivalry. Like that's like that like that's like, you know, that's family. But Jackson State, now we hate Jackson State, and I'm like it's up when it's Jackson State. We don't like, and Jackson State like we don't like Southern. So it's like this is like a real rivalry. This is actually amazing to get this, and then people aren't going to talk about the fact, and a lot of the media is not going to tell you that in 2022 Southern played Jackson State in the SWAC championship, and when College Game Day went to Jackson State, what was the game they played that day? They played Southern. You know, now granted, Jackson State in the Deion era was successful against Southern. In 2021, they won that game, but and Deion came back to the sidelines because he had the surgery. But it was a very narrow game in 2021. But 2022, demonstrative victory. I think they won, 30-0. The SWAC championship was it wasn't closer, but Southern put up more fight because it's hard to beat a team twice, even for Deion. It's hard to beat a team twice. And then we found out the day before that Deion was going to Colorado because the reports came out, and Deion himself hadn't said anything about it until after that game. And then he did, you know, the conversation, the famous conversation of, oh, you either elevated or you terminated. And it's like, that's so dumb. Oh my God, that's so dumb. That's such and people are like, oh, that's so true. We gotta go, Arielle. But can I just say this real quick, Arielle? That's so dumb. You either elevated or you terminated, or you stay successful. You either elevated. Mac Brown got fired from North Carolina. You either elevated or you terminated. No, you either you elevated, you terminated, or you just stay good. Like I pay you to win games. Like what? I gotta go and get up out of here because the elevator terminated. Like no, like that's so. Like only Deion will make people like, oh, elevator terminated. I gotta go. Like come on.
Well, you know, there's differences between a player turned coach and a coach that's always been a coach. When you look at Nick Saban trying to explain what's going on in the game, you can hear from his coaching side. Then you have a Tom Brady who's turned into a commentator. He knows the game because he's been on the field, but he's not having that same coach insight as you see as Nick Saban is having. So to him, as you know, not trying to defend Deion Sanders or what he said, because what he said isn't true, but as speaking as a player, he's probably been like that. I've been gone from one team. I've been cut to another team. I've been traded to another team. I've played as a baseball player. Like, I know what it means to jump teams and jump games and to do what it needs to do to win. But as in coaching, and we see it with HBCU coaches, you don't have to leave to be successful. You can be successful, or it's more about changing your players' lives, because you do that too, Deion Sanders. Like, it's about changing the players' lives, not about your success. Your success is going to happen. You'll be elevated by what you put on that field and how many games that you win. As a coach, you're no longer judged as if you can play as a player. You're judged on winning games and bringing in that money. So if you're not winning games, yeah, there are other ways to be fired. There are other ways to be let go. You don't have any good recruits, you don't have any 4 stars in your lineup, let you go. There are other ways. So, he's not wrong, but he just has a different mindset. And you can't do that with players that turn coaches.
And I feel exactly what you're saying. I just felt like it was disingenuous for him to say that, because my dad taught me early on, especially as I was, trying to get my success, write my books, and be in media. Like he says, no one is irreplaceable. And I mean, you can feel, because I think context for all these sayings are needed, but like you like, there are people that are irreplaceable in business, but there is someone that simplifies your process, or they make something easier, or they do something great. Yes, someone else can come in and they can also do great things, but that person that you're replacing, whether you fired them or they've left or something else has happened, like sometimes they are irreplaceable. But it's not. But the concept is that you can be replaced. So in concept, yes, you can get elevated or terminated, but he's Deion Sanders. If he was at Jackson State, he was probably going to run the gambit on the SWAC again. Maybe Willie Simmons gets some then in 2023. Oh, Willie, fam, you beat us. Oh my gosh, we're going to the FCS playoffs. Like, we're going to the FCS playoffs. And then now you can really test your mettle against these other teams. And then now you win one of those games. Not now you're getting calls. You know what I'm saying? Because let's not forget, Nick Saban retired, around that time. And then Washington then came up. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's like, well, hey, Deion's at Jackson State and he's beating these FCS teams out of HBCU life, let's maybe give him a shot because he can really recruit. Like that, because that was my thing, where it's like, if you're going to leave, just tell me, hey, y'all, listen, it's been great, but I'm going to Colorado. It's like 30 million. And then on top of that, on top of that, we doing Coach Prime over there. Over there. We doing the Prime video series over there. Okay. And then y'all listen, I'm trying to get my son drafted. Let's be honest. He ain't getting drafted from Jackson State. Okay. You saw what I saw in 2021. Ain't no HBCU player was taking off that board. I'm trying to get my son drafted. Like, just be honest with me, Arielle. Be honest with me.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Dang. I
just wanted to be honest. You'll be like, oh, you get elevated, or you terminated, and God told me. No, God told you want your son drafted, and you went to Colorado, and you want that bag, even though you're very rich man, you want that bag for your coaches.
He doesn't owe anybody.
He doesn't.
The only people that needed to know is the president, the athletic director, and that's it. Because when the team found out, and you can't tell me they didn't play different, finding out before the Celebration Bowl that our coach is not coming. And then you saw what happened. Half of his team, 60% of his team went into the transfer portal. So you saw that effect. So personally, as Deion Sanders, I'm pissed because y'all did not respect me enough to call that news after. And I was trying to dead the rumors. I was trying to be like, you're either elevated or terminate. I don't know where I'm gonna go. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. I don't mind you being coy about that, because that's something that could literally change somebody who's going to go out there and play, or their future. Like, nobody should be thinking of nothing right now but this championship game. Also, can't fault him for wanting his sons to go pro. I mean, having a dad like Deion Sanders, great. You know, I have a foot in the door, but I still need a team that can prove that. And I'm, as Deion Sanders, as being a coach there, literally for like maybe a year and a half. I don't give him the full 2 years, but like a year and a half. After seeing how the SWAC was going to go with Deion, there is no competition. There's no reason why I should be out there watching Shiloh or Shador play, because they're just out here running through the whole conference. I mean, to some people, they'll think, oh, that's great recruiting. There's only one team that had to go look at. They're going to look at them dominating, but I'm not seeing the progression of a Shador Sanders, and I think he's been more challenged playing for Colorado State. To me, I always thought everybody thinks the QB is the greatest player, but honestly, to me, I think Shiloh is a more effective player. I think he's a more effective player. Now, Shador is really good. That man has talent. I can't wait to see what team he goes to. I can't wait to see what he does. But to me, I think Shiloh is the more effective player. I think he has more to play for because he's not in that big position. He's not a quarterback. He just plays defense, but he's really good at it. However, none of his boys were going to be recruited just staying at Jackson State. There was no competition. There's no pressure coming upon them. They don't have somebody that they're competing with across the field, and going to Colorado, they have that now. So there's the mindset of what Deion Sanders is in is like great, but what's coming out of his mouth, I can't say what I want to say because people are going to come for me. What's coming out of his mouth doesn't, kind of connect, or it's not on the same side of what he's actually doing. So I can get his reasonings. It's just, Deion, sometimes you need to learn when to just close your mouth, bro. I don't need you to be saying all this extra stuff. Just keep it pushing. But I don't blame him for not trying to go out the news that I'm leaving schools. I would try to hide that too. I'm not gonna lie.
I feel it for sure. But let me say this, because if Deion and Colorado fans find out this at the end of this episode, because I doubt they will, I just want to say I'm probably the only person in America that's not related to Shador Sanders that likes perfect timing. That's my jam. You know what I'm saying? Like, this always busting my AP perfect time. I'll be putting on my Apple Watch already. I'll be like, yeah. Like, I don't got no role. I don't got no AP. I don't got NIL money, Arielle. Okay. But guess what? I put an Apple Watch like, yeah, perfect timing. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell you. Then I got the analog too. I can tell analog time. Yeah.
Great show, Randall. Tell us. I am over you.
Oh my gosh.
You said the analog and the Apple. Bro, out of here. Please. Please.
That definitely should end it for sure. Arielle, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at __modern-day Ari. Put me in the hot seat on the X, formerly known as Twitter, as ___. Go check out my website, arielkilgore.canva.com. Almost had a brain fart there.
Listen, but
it's time to go.
It was perfect timing, Arielle. All right, you listen to HBC Pulse Radio.
Oh man.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.